Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Kelly. I spent the last 9 months doing a sports videography capstone. I was loaned a camera by our school. And before I begin, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming. I'm really excited to do this. I'm really excited to get it over with. It's been a big part of my life for the last 9 months, but it's also about it's about what I did and what I produced, but it's also about the journey it took and what I learned about myself as a result. So again, I'm really grateful for this opportunity. Thank you to Dr. Moore and Mr. Holman, he's not here, but thank you so much for this opportunity. And if you've been to a presentation today, you might have heard this before, but there was a new format this year. So in the past, it was a requirement. 25-page paper was what we were looking at. But now it was open for a portfolio. So what that means is that people who want to take a more creative interest, they can do that, something that wouldn't fit traditionally into a paper. They can take that interest and form a portfolio, which means they would, do some more creative, pursue the creative interest there, and then make that lead to a capstone that better fits what they want to do. So I love that option. I took into account my interests, which have always been sports media. At Calvert Hall for 4 years, I've been involved with the Communications Club, which conducts a lot of sports broadcasting at Calvert Hall. So I've done a lot of play-by-play work for a bunch of teams: football, basketball, soccer, and baseball. I've also done the camera, so I know my way around sports media. And we've had all the ESPN channels since I've been growing up, so I've seen a lot of 30 for 30s and The Last Dance and things like that. So it's always been an interest for me. And Mr. Holman knew that, so he connected me with one of his friends. His name is Tim Horsey. So Mr. Horsey was a graduate of Calvert Hall. He went on to study at the University of Maryland. He studied journalism there, and one of the things that he did while he was there is he would follow a sports team. So he'd follow the women's soccer team. He would go to a practice. He would interview a coach. He would interview a player. And then he would do some voiceover work to create a news story. So he would either document their successes or their struggles, or the star players hurt, how are they rallying around that. And he would make these little 3 to 4 minute videos. And he now does journalism work. So he works for SiriusXM as a soccer radio host. He was able to parlay that into a career in sports media. So that was kind of where my inspiration came from, learning from him, and then also the connections and ideas that Mr. Holman had. So going into the journey, this is a capstone about lowering expectations, I think. My initial plan was to do 3 separate documentaries, which looking back on it, it sounds absolutely insane. My initial plan was to do 1 for football, 1 for basketball, and 1 for baseball. The football documentary, I was shooting for 10 to 15 minutes in content. My goal was to pursue our team as they prepare for the Turkey Bowl and they make the playoffs, so I would also try to put that in there. That did not end up happening. Unfortunately, there were some circumstances beyond my control that I had to abandon that. And I was hoping that would lead me to put all my energy and make 2 really good documentaries for basketball and baseball. So basketball, my plan was to look at 10 to 15 minutes, just documenting the season under a new coach, head coach David Gately. I've been told that he's super personable and super friendly, and I was really hoping that it would give me a chance to kind of follow a team for a whole season. But I'll get into this later in the presentation. But there were just a lot of issues with my personal self. I think I struggled with self-worth a little bit while doing it. It was a very vulnerable time for me, so that didn't end up coming to fruition. But I'm not as upset about it as I had been. I think I've finally become content with my effort, and I'll get to this later, but I've now produced things that I'm happy with, even if it wasn't what I expected at the beginning. So you can see my equipment. The top middle photo is all the equipment I had. The body of the camera is right in the middle. It's a Nikon D7500. The only thing that was bought specifically for me for this capstone is the big furry thing. That's the Rode shotgun microphone. The actual furry thing is called a dead cat. And I've had multiple players on teams say, "What the heck is that? It looks like a dead cat." And I have to tell them it's called a dead cat, and they don't believe me. So that's been a little funny. I didn't believe it at first either, but that was the thing that was bought specifically for me. About $120 using the McMullen allotted budget. And then to the right of the camera, you see the 2 lenses. This left picture is using the smaller lens. It's the 15 by 60 millimeter lens. Gives you a wide field of view. Again, it might be tough to see with the glare. I just took these pictures yesterday while I was returning my camera. I was like, I should get some pictures of this stuff. But you can see it gets a little bit more area focus on than the right one, which is the 70 by 300 millimeter lens. So the 70 by 300 on the right, that's the focus more on like baseball, where the action maybe is a little farther away. You need to get to the outfield to see something. That's what that's for, and it has a really crazy zoom. It's really super clear. The one on the left I used more for basketball when I was in the confines of a gym. Just get stuff that's a little bit closer. And in the middle bottom, That is the demon that is Adobe Premiere Pro. It was loaned to me very generously by Mr. Awakio, Director of Communications for Calvert Hall. It's crazy. I mean, you would not understand how much work you have to put into it to be able to even know a little bit of it. And as someone who did not know any of this stuff, never owned a camera, never edited before, absolutely insane. So a part of the big struggle that came from it was just learning to overcome this and do stuff that kind of makes sense and is kind of coherent. But yeah, it was a big ask, especially with very little background in this. So for basketball, you can see McMullen here, who's actually in attendance today. Mac is a member of the varsity basketball team, and what I did for basketball was I went to a few games and I went to a practice. I was around the team. I interviewed Coach Gately and Mac. I interviewed Mac after the practice I went to, and I will just lead off by saying this didn't lead to anything really, which I'm a little upset about. I wish I could have made something with it. I wish I could have done something with it to kind of show off all the work that I put in, but nothing ended up happening. And I think this is because I was just kind of unmotivated. I really struggled with kind of overcoming the amount of work that would need to go in. But I did go to a ton of games. I went to 5 or 6 games. I would go on the road. I would kind of go as high up as I can and film the whole game, film every possession. I had so much footage after this, so much footage that I didn't end up using, which is kind of a shame. But at practices, I would just kind of film people doing drills and stuff. And then the interviews, I would interview, like I said, Coach Gately and Mac. There was more to this than just looking at a documentary. I knew that each individual part of this would build up into helping me break into the sports media field. And what do I mean by that? I know at the University of Maryland, where I'll be attending next year, there's a lot of different journalism classes, and I've been telling my friends this. There's a lot of journalism, which I don't really want to do. I just want to kind of broadcast and do play-by-play. But I know there's a lot of things like interviewing and camera classes and stuff like that, photojournalism. And I think there's different things that I did, even if it didn't amount to anything. I'm still proud of being able to learn how to conduct an interview and keeping them engaged with questions and keeping the pacing good and making sure the camera's focused on them and things like that. So I think that will help me as I continue to hopefully forge a career in this industry. So here's the conflict that I'll reference a few times, taking the easy way out. I think at the time when I became unmotivated and I kind of surrendered and realized this isn't really going to get anywhere, I was really upset with myself. I kind of felt like I've been continuing a theme which I've done in my life, which is taking the easy way out, which is unfortunate because I feel like a lot of times I shortchange myself. I think in classes or in grades and stuff, oftentimes things will come easy and I get the grade I want without a ton of work. So I was kind of hoping that this capstone would give me an opportunity to, finally put an effort into something. But when that wasn't really coming to fruition, when I was confronted with all this work that would have to happen to be able to use, Premiere Pro or edit anything together or do voiceover work, I was just really overwhelmed. And I ended up wanting to just give it up. I talked to Mr. Holman. I was like, Mr. Holman, I can't do this anymore. Like this is really tough. I don't really have any idea of what I want to do. I've done all this work, but at the end of the day, nothing's going to come from it. And he kind of centered me, and he said, just do one thing. Just make an edit of Coach Gately. Just make a little edit. So he wanted a minute-long edit of Coach Gately. During an interview, I asked him a question about how his own teaching style interacts with the new personalities he's interacting with on his coaching staff, as well as the new players that he's coaching. He answered that question, and I just threw some clips over it. There was 5 straight clips of practices and games. I threw some music over it at Mr. Holman's request. It's probably a good idea because it was very awkward. But I did that, and it was finally just something to be able to say like, hey, even if it was just for a little bit, I conquered Premiere Pro. I conquered, my fear of editing. And it was really, really inspiring for me to get to my next sport, which I took on, which was baseball. Now I've had a lot of connections with baseball. I played it growing up, played it through 8th grade. And when I got to Calvert Hall, I've been a manager on the varsity team for the last 3 years. So I know a lot of the guys. I was really excited to be able to go on this project with them. I've grown up with a lot of them, and I've been able to be with them through our 4 years. And now that we're seniors, I kind of wanted to document the last ride. I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning, but my plan for baseball was to do 45 minutes to an hour of a documentary, which I can't believe I thought I could do that. It did not happen. So don't expect that to be shown at the end or anything. There's no rabbit out of the hat. It didn't happen. But it was something that I was really kind of focusing on working towards. And even in the back of my mind, I was like, even if it doesn't end up working out for me what I wanted, I know anything that I can do can be beneficial to people on the team because they can have videos to remember the season by, things like that. They can have video to work on themselves, which we'll get into in a minute. But I was just a little bit more inspired to do this work. So I did two different things, or three different things actually. The first thing is individual highlights. So on the top you can see center fielder Keaton Barber hitting a home run on Saturday, leading off our championship game 1. On the bottom you can see Will Hag, starting right fielder, candidate for Conference Player of the Year, with a good at-bat against the D1 arm, eventually lining a double into left field and scored 2. Players would start to ask me once they realized that I was at these games. They would ask me for their clips, they would ask me for their swings. They were like, hey, we think we can learn from this. And one of the concerns that ended up arising throughout the year was that there wasn't enough video footage. Like no one knew what they were doing to begin with, so they couldn't work on how to fix it. So they were just kind of repeating the same stuff and the same stuff. But by finally getting video for them, they were able to see, hey, my front shoulder is flying open, or hey, I'm rotating too early, or I'm rotating too late. So being able to have that, I felt like I was a help to the team, even if I wasn't really thinking of, where this is going to lead me and how much work I'm going to have to do, which is the contrast from the basketball documentary, where I was just focused on, how insurmountable this would be to do something. In this regard, I actually thought I could, take a step back, just do one clip at a time, and make something that would actually be helpful to the individual people. And this middle bullet, held myself to a standard. I think my camera's good enough, it's better than an iPhone, to the point where I could just send them the raw footage and they would be like, oh, this is great, this is so clear, I love this. But I wanted to actually hold myself to a standard here, so I actually spent a fair amount of time editing each one. And I meant to address this at the beginning, I should do it now. The things on your desk, the QR codes, I handed them out and there's a pile of them in the back, and I got some up here. But it'll take you to a Google Drive of all the finished work that I did this year. So we'll have 3 folders with the individual highlights. I think there are about 25 clips of these, just different ones that players asked me to send them that I ended up editing and sprucing up for them. There's a folder with the next 2 things, which I'll get to. But if you're interested in that, take a look at that. It's on the QR code. But I think just for my capstone purposes, I was really happy that I actually tried to make these good, right? And just taking the easy way out, like I said, and just sending them the raw footage. So I was really happy with the work that I put in there. The next thing is the playoff edit. So it says had a vision. So I was in the shower one morning. This is actually, I don't think anyone knows this, but this is the day before my AP Calc exam. It's a Sunday morning, Calc exam's on Monday. I haven't studied really at all for the math exam. And I'm in the shower and I'm thinking, wouldn't it be cool to do an edit for our team as we go into the playoffs? Mind you, I haven't studied at all. So I was like, no, I'll do this instead. So I get home from church. I spend probably 3 to 4 hours on this. I know my parents are in the room and they're probably like, how the heck did you do that? But this is what I spent my time on that day before a math exam. And I think it was worth it. I had a lot of fun doing it. I took together the clips from throughout the year. This is just a few. This is 3 or 4. This is towards the end of the edit. But again, that's on the QR code if you want to see it. It's under the folder edits. But I was able to just stitch together a bunch of clips. I threw some text at the end. There's no audio, but it's Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin, which is a song that the team kind of loved throughout the year. And I think really what I wanted to do this for is just because it's such a professional sphere of editing. You'll see it online, maybe it's TikTok or Instagram, but people will do edits of very famous, basketball players or baseball players with songs, and it'll all be very, very professional. And I was kind of thinking that in mind, like I could do something similar. I could not, but it's something that I was proud of. Even if it wasn't super professional, it kind of made me feel like I was part of the team almost. Yeah, but I was pretty happy with this. And again, this will be on the QR code. And then the last thing is game highlights. So throughout the year, I could only do road conference games. I did 1 road non-conference game, which is the one you see on the screen, versus Malvern Prep. I had duties to do at home games as part of being a manager, so I can only do the road games. But at the road games, I basically film every single pitch, because in baseball, you never know when someone's gonna hit a home run or a diving play is gonna happen. I mean, in sport like basketball or soccer, you can score when you have the ball, and that's pretty much it. So you can focus on those parts of it. But when you look at things like this, like baseball, you have every single pitch, and so when you look back after the game, you start to think, I could put this together and make it something. And I was inspired. There's a YouTube channel called Black Cobra Media, and if you play baseball or at a high level, you know what it is. It's a guy based in Georgia who will go to high school baseball games in the area. He'll do what I did, which is film every single pitch. He'll make sure that he can put the names of the players and where they're committed and their ranking and their position and stuff like that, just for casual fans to watch and be able to absorb high-level baseball very conveniently and easily without actually being at the game. So that was kind of my inspiration. I had a little more of a basis on what I was doing. So you can see 2 clips from it. The top clip can kind of show you some game footage, warm-up footage that has the names and the commitments and stuff like that. The bottom has just the setting with the records and stuff. But I really wanted to do this because it was 2 very good teams. I think Melbourne Prep had won 29 in a row at home, I believe, before we came in and beat them 1-0. But they won 29 in a row at home. They were nationally ranked. They're number 40 in the country, number 1 in Pennsylvania. So it was a really exciting time for me because I knew like people would actually want to watch this because it's 2 high-level teams. The game was 1-0, as I mentioned, which maybe you would think there was not a lot of offense, and there wasn't. Maybe you think it would take not a lot of time to edit. It did. I think probably it took me upwards of 15 hours to make this video, which I actually published yesterday. I just finished it yesterday. It took me about a month to kind of find the time to piecemeal this together. It would be an hour, 2 hours at a time. And I remember I talked with the basketball documentary. I would get overwhelmed by the tasks in front of me, and I just gave up. I just wanted to resign. But with this one, I was really proud of how I was resilient, and I really wanted to stick with it, produce the final product, because I didn't want to just leave something else to give up on. So I think that's what I'm proud of, is just being able to get through it, publish it, and it gets on my YouTube channel. I wrote it down there, and then my Instagram is there. I was plugging myself. Yeah, so if you want to view those, it's on there, but it's also on the QR code as well under the folder Game Highlights. So I'm going to talk about the 3 lessons I learned from this capstone. The first lesson is about lowering your expectations. I know I mentioned this at the beginning. It's a capstone of lowering your expectations. But what does that mean? I feel like at Calvert Hall, I feel like because of how I've achieved and how I've been with my grades and things like that, I feel like there's this pressure on me to continue keeping that up, and not only to keep it up, but to raise the bar and keep going above and beyond. That's kind of how I felt with the capstone, and I never realized it was not there. Like, no one was really caring about if it was good or not. But in my mind, I was like, this had to be the best. This had to be like the best capstone ever, which led me to put like all these expectations on myself. Like, hey, I want to do an hour-long documentary, even though I've never done this before. I can learn it. I couldn't, but I felt like I had to overachieve with it, which is really unfortunate because I think it took away from my experience at the beginning, just like thinking I had to go above and beyond when I couldn't even just meet the mark at the beginning. When I talked to Mr. Hallman, I mentioned earlier, I talked to him and he kind of helped me center myself and asked for the one edit. He told me a story. He wrote this book. It's called Men's Retreat. It's a book of poems. They're very good, very touching, about his parents who passed away a few years ago. You should buy it. He'll take $10. He'll give you the book. It's pretty sweet. But he had made this pact with people that he would deliver them by hand. If you requested it, he would hand deliver your book. And he once he got all these orders coming in from Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia, all these places that he had to go, he got overwhelmed. And he said, well, there's so many people wanting to hand deliver the books. I can't even do one. I can't even get one person their book. And then days, weeks start adding up. No one's gotten their book because he's just paralyzed by all the different things in front of him. That's exactly how I felt with this capstone, and I was really grateful for this analogy because I think when you are confronted with like a wall of tasks, you can't focus on the one that's right in front of you. Like you immediately just look at the big wall and be like, oh crap, I have to do all this, I'm never gonna get this done. That prevents you from even starting the first one. So I think once I realized that I could just take it one at a time, that led me to my next lesson, which is to focus on something. This is a story about a camera and about this capstone and about life in general. When you have your camera, what I would do is I would film the play, and say it's a ground up to shortstop in a baseball game. I'd ball go to shortstop, I'd film the shortstop, it would go to first, I'd film the first baseman. And now I don't want to end the clip there, I want to kind of segue it out, get some filler in there. I would try to find something else to film, so I would look at maybe go to the umpire, maybe go back to the shortstop, maybe go to the first baseman, maybe the base runner. While I was doing that, I would take my head off the camera and I would look around and see who can I focus on. Then my camera would start to drift down. It would point at turf, or it would point at the fence, or it would point at a tree. And if you're watching that without knowing what I was doing, you're like, the heck's he doing? Like, just end the clip. Like, what's he doing? He's just pointing at nothing. So when I realized that was a part of it, I realized you just have to focus on something. And I know this, I've talked about with sports broadcasting, it's all about storytelling. So you gotta make sure you're telling a story, make sure the audience is there with you. And if you do that, you'll keep them engaged regardless of what you point at. You just gotta make sure everything's intentional. You gotta make sure you're deliberate in what you do. And that relates back to the capstone because, like I said, if you have this wall of tasks in front of you, you gotta focus on one before you can do any of the ones behind. Running a marathon isn't 26 miles right away. It's 1 mile and 1 mile and 1 mile and 1 mile. So if you focus on what's in front of you, you can really be able to make a dent in that wall. Even if you don't feel it at the time, you feel like you're actually getting some headway. These are lesson 3. I don't have to take the easy route. I know I felt earlier with the basketball, I kind of, ducked out the back door. Like I didn't really do it justice with all the work I put in. It's kind of a theme I've had in my life, but I feel like I haven't challenged myself enough. But when I look back at it, even if it's not what I expected initially, I know that it was worth it because I know it was a challenge for me. I mean, like I said, I've never done this before. I've never held a camera before I started this. I've never taken photos, taken videos. I didn't know Premiere Pro existed before I got it, and I wish I still didn't know it existed. But I think even though it wasn't what I anticipated, it was still very rewarding just because I can look back on it, be proud of the body of work that I did. I know the work that it took to get there. I don't think I would be saying this a month ago. I don't think I would be saying this 2 months ago. I think if you asked me a month ago, I'd be like, yeah, I haven't done anything yet. Like this capstone's such a failure. I haven't done what I wanted to, and I'm just disappointed with it. I want to give up. But now I can look at it and say, even if I didn't do what I wanted to, I still did what I could, which I think is all you can do with the capstone. Just do what you could with the resources you have and the talent you have. So I'm really proud of how it turned out, even though I wouldn't have been, probably even up until yesterday, I wouldn't have been proud of it. But now I kind of have some solace in that I really put my best foot forward with this. So in conclusion, I mean, the lessons I learned, I just talked about them, but it's important to just take everything one day at a time. Just take everything, the first thing in front of you, then the next thing. It's not everything in front of you, just one thing, one thing, one thing. I think once I was able to learn that for sure, it made everything a lot easier. So thank you all for coming out. I think I might have bled over the time a little bit. If anyone has questions, I'd love to answer them. I love answering questions, so please don't hesitate to ask. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Beautiful job describing like all these mental struggles. It was very touching. But do you feel like when you were struggling with that, did that make you ever doubt about what you're going to study in the future, or was that always like a constant for you? Oh, I definitely want to do this. Or did your struggles in this capstone made you question like that next step in college too?
Absolutely, yeah. I was blessed to go to University of Maryland. I had an interview there for a scholarship, and when I was there, they gave us a tour of the journalism school. And we met with the dean, we met with all these career placement people, and everything that I learned about the school was like, you have to take all these required classes that are either photojournalism or video journalism, investigative reporting, all this stuff that I'm just thinking like, I don't want to do this. Like especially with how I'm struggling with this, like I really want to learn how to take photos and take videos, and I want to do that, but I can't. And knowing that I have to do that in college as a requirement for my degree, like that sucks. I'm really having second thoughts about this. But now I think I can look back and feel confident in it. I know one of the things I meant to say at the end, which I was pretty proud of when I came up with it, was I think it's important that I know how to challenge myself now. Like I know how to take on challenges that are in front of me. Even if it's something that seems insurmountable, I know that whatever it is, I can find a way to make a dent in it, and all that it needs to is more and more dents, and then you can finally break the wall down. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with, I think I'm content with journalism as a degree now, although there's still a lot of writing, which I don't really want to do, but I'll get over it.
So, as you explained a lot in this one, as all of our captains have had, there have been kind of struggles throughout the way that have kind of stopped us, which I think is super important for us because a lot of times we can go through school without many struggles. So, how would you use the struggles that you've had in this experience in the future in college, whether it's college or in your job?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to be able to address that you're struggling, first of all. I think it's unhealthy to say, like, I'll get through it, it's fine, it's just another bump in the road, I'm past it, like, I got this. Like, that's really unhealthy. You gotta be able to recognize that you are struggling with this, so you can go to people around you and say, hey, I need help, how can I get around this? How can I, increase my work ethic at this? So I think being able to realize that, there are things that I struggled with, help me realize that I know I can take steps to learn from them. like talking to people like Mr. Hallman and talking to people, you know, like yourself and like students around me, how they dealt with struggles themselves. I think that's a really easy way to kind of get back on your feet and be able to focus on what's in front of you. Yes?
The video editing software that you used is professional grade. Did you ever consider using something that was a little bit more user friendly?
Yeah, so Premiere Pro is, Adobe is the suite, so it has a bunch of different things. It has Lightroom, which I used for one person. They wanted a bunch of pictures to post, so I had to use Lightroom for them, which was a little annoying. I had to download a whole new thing. Whatever. I used Lightroom, I used Audition, which was for audio, and I used Premiere Pro. Has a ton of other things like Acrobat, which is PDF. Once I heard that this was a possibility, I think I kind of subconsciously wanted to challenge myself. Like, I think I had this expectation for myself. This is back when I think I'm doing multiple documentaries and cranking them out like nothing. So I'm like, yeah, I can use a professional grade. I can do this thing, isn't it? It's gonna be no problem, I'll pick it up. I think it was probably a pride thing to be able to take a step back, and I wasn't able to say, like, you know, I'll take a step down and use iMovie or something. But I think it was worthwhile, because I think as I want to move into this field, like, no one's using iMovie in real life to do stuff like this. Like, they're using Premiere Pro, and I think getting that exposure early, it at least, if nothing else, even if I forget everything I learned from it, it at least tells me that I know how to work around it, and I know how to, you know, address something that may seem like insurmountable at first.